Hey everyone, Art Trading here. Welcome back to the channel. A couple things going to go over for the week on top of the trades that I took and ideas is also really focusing on the law of large numbers. You know, some people they take one or two losses and kind of base their whole trading on those losses, but I think really signifying the importance of letting the probabilities take place. So just kind of going to dive into it, going to show Monday's executions. I couldn't show it on TradingView because the 10-second was already past the data time, but this was Monday's flat day for Monday for me. Going to go over these two were both pre-market, and one of them would have been a winner. I went break even a little bit too early. I don't know why, but it just kind of happened, even though the risk was super low. But going off the bat at around like 850, we did have this 10-second zone right here. Almost came close to entry. It did tag 50% of it, but I am taking 60% of the zone now. It did tag 50%, went to zone high, and then we did have another 10-second zone right here with decent displacement, consolidation above. Came down, tagged me in. I did like this inducement down here where it closed back into the range. For some reason, after I saw this candle, I went break even, which was a little bit too quick for me. You know, with the 10 seconds, there's always going to be a higher chance of false flags. So I did see that fail to close over there. I did go break even, went break even for me, and then would have hit TP. So already off the bat, because I broke that mental rule of going break even a little too quick, I decided to call it for the day over there. When you're aware that you're not exactly not so reading the market right, but if you're mentally not there, especially Mondays are not my greatest days. I did decide to call it for the day over there, but that's okay. And now going into Tuesday, July 16th. So didn't waited for market to open. We had about I usually like to wait about 30 minutes. Typically my day will start execution wise like around 10 o'clock Eastern. So I usually like to wait for the market to cool off a little bit and either establish a trend or for me to get a better read. And generally within those first 30 minutes, I like to take mental trades in my head just to see if I am reading it correctly. Okay. There was one setup that I did really like, but just never came up for entry, was right here. So we did break out this range down here. We did have a fail to close on the 1 minute right here. So wicked above, price closed back in the range. On top of that, we did have a 1 minute CSS. Now, a lot of people ask me what is a CSS. It is a candlestick structure flip. So when you have, for example, you have this up close candle, right? And it closes, that creates a swing point, closes below that up close candle. On the lower time frame, that is actually a flip zone. Okay, so you can see here. So this right here was that CSS. On a lower time frame, that becomes a flip zone. Okay, so just to kind of establish that. So generally, I would be looking for a short here, especially when it's coupled with a fail to close plus a 1 minute CSS. I would be looking to short. Actually, let me go on the 10-second. I don't know why I did that on the 1 minute. I would be looking to short at around here. Okay, but never came up to entry, just kept kind of bleeding down. So waited. There was this right here, which I really did like. I was a little bit too slow on the trigger because I didn't even realize that we did close below this zone right here. I thought it bodied it originally and then failed to close. But more so, the reason I did like this trade is we did have a fail to close on the 1 minute right here and the 10 seconds as well. So usually that's a really good indicator to be trading the opposing side of that. So failed to close, created a 1 minute CSS right here, closed below this up close candle. So looking at a short right here, but like I said, I was a little too slow for entry. This would have been an instant TP, so it would have hit entry. You took a little bit of heat on it, but then would have hit TP in about like 30-40 seconds. So missed that one over there. I did really like this one. Risk was a little bit wide. However, I did really like it was this zone up here. Okay. So generally when we're downtrending, we typically get like this inducement up, like a deeper mitigation into these imbalances right here. So already read that off the bat. Now going on to this, so short would have been right over here. Okay, so it would have been about 15.25 points, which typically I like to keep it 15 max, but for me this was a really A plus setup. On top of the deeper mitigation into those imbalances, still continuing with trend, and we did confirm a CSS, just a straight body close under that CSS down here. I was looking at about 60%. It came within, I think it was like 3 ticks away from my entry and just melted back down to that zone low. But reason why I did like this, and just to talk about a little bit, so we have this zone, this more refined zone, because technically down here would be the true zone since we closed below this low over here. But I like to refine a little bit. So right here would be the move origin and the more refined zone for me to take. Okay, now with this, like I said, we had clear displacement through, we had consolidation as well, and then usually when there's that displacement and consolidation, typically these zones will be respected according to what their job is supposed to do. Now almost went to entry, then went down to zone low. Now for me, because it's already tagged 50% of that zone and went to that zone low that I had marked out, or even true zone, it did hit true zone as well, I will pull my limit off. Even though if I re-entered, it would have worked again. However, typically when 50% of the zone is already mitigated, chances are it could still blow through and go through that zone high, okay, and just have 100% mitigation through it. So missed that one as well, but that's okay. And then next, moving on to here. Now, prior videos I talked about the 1 minute wicks being a magnet and a potential rejection out of. So we did tap 50% of that 1 minute wick over here, rejected through, had a 1 minute CSS confirmed down here when this candle closed. Okay, so created that zone. Now right here would have been entry, so zone low right here to zone high. Move origin is also there as well, but I decided to go for the actual zone on this one since 9.5 points is around my comfort level. I don't want to take something too tight as well, because there will be that chance that it doesn't even hit 50 or 60% of that move origin. So I was definitely okay with this. Tag me in. When it comes this close to TP, so going about like 1.4 R, but it comes about like 1 and almost a quarter R through the way, I do typically like to set that to break even. And good thing I did, because this would have actually been a loss. So, you know, defense is always going to be the best offense. So that would have been a break even over there. So after the break even, there was this winner right over here. So just kind of talk about on the 1 minute. 1 minute, we had a fail to close above here, but also we had a fail to close down here as well. However, eventually we did close below this, indicating another 1 minute CSS. On top of that, on the 10-second, we did have a fail to close over there as well. Okay, so when you start coupling these 1 minute CSSs with 1 minute fail to closes plus 10-second closes, fail to closes, the probabilities are really going to increase. Okay, so 10-second fail to close, created a zone, nice strong close below, set 60% limit on there, tagged in, and about like 10-15 seconds later hit straight to TP. And then there was this right here, which I was okay with taking, but a couple things with this. So I was already up for the day. Same thing here, 1 minute CSS, okay, had nice displacement through this zone over here. Now, one thing I didn't like about this one is we were kind of toying around with that 50% a couple times. So originally I wanted this move up here to be my entry. It did not enter in, but, and this is something I explained in my last video as well. I won't get too much into it since it was in my last video. But because we kept toying around with the 50%, I decided to pull the limit off, and eventually still would have tagged and hit TP down there. Okay. And then moving on to Wednesday, July 17th. So kind of the same footprint as Tuesday's. We were in the range from market open and then decided to downtrend right after about 9:55 Eastern, 10 o'clock. And so we were kind of waiting for the same plays. Now, with this, I got really fixated on this zone right here. So we had this fail to close on the 10 second. Let me take this out actually. So fail to close on the 10 second up here. Okay. With the 1 minute CSS along the lines of structure as well. So fail to close, good displacement through, a lot of consolidation, and the 1 minute CSS with structure. I really, whatever was going on between here, I was not focused too much on it. For me, this was the main play for the day, and I was okay with waiting. I mean, I waited about like 30 minutes until it hit entry because I just knew that this zone right here was very high probable. Okay, so eventually we did have this low resistance liquidity run up here where we have this trend line liquidity. Tapped 60% of that zone. Okay, so entry would have been here, so that was about 11 risk for 16.5 points. And then it only took about one tick of heat on this one, and it just went straight to zone low. So instant TP on that pretty much, which that's, when it's high probable too, you're not going to get a lot of consolidation at your entry. Usually it is going to be a swifter reaction out of it. And like I said, there was a couple of trades I could have taken between here that would have netted. However, this was just my main focus. And then after, taking 16.5 points from the market, I decided to call it there. There was another setup out of it that I really did like, but I did not take. I was okay with, being pretty decent green for the day. It was actually this one right here. So, like I said earlier, we had this 1 minute wick. Typically is going to be a magnet. Rejects out of it. Okay. Clear zone indicated over here. Could have taken 50-60% of it. I think 60% would have tagged over here, or it would have been a tick. And then it would have hit zone low over there as well. So decent Wednesday. Now moving on to Thursday. Thursday I didn't take anything. For me, I did not have a good read on price, and range plus volatility was on the higher side. I'm not comfortable taking 18-20 point risks. And typically what I like to do within that first 30 minutes, I'm not trading after market open. Like I said, I do take mental trades. And if I'm wrong on my mental trades, that means personally for me, I do not have a good read on the market yet. Okay. And if I'm not confident on reading the market, I am not going to be confident on executing trades. Okay. And I'm hoping that makes sense for most people. If, just to kind of repeat myself, is if you're not confident in reading the market, you should not be confident in taking executions, unless you're simming, of course. A couple areas I could have gone in, and like this right here, this is completely against structure since we started downtrending, but I don't like taking the first flip zones off the 10 seconds. So for example, 10 second flip zone over here, you have your 1 minute CSS, because typically these do end up failing. Okay, it's kind of like a fake flip. It would have worked out, but like I said, range was a little too high, plus being counter trend. Aside from that, really Thursday, nothing that stuck out to me that in my eyes was A+. We had these ranges and then just sporadic moves down. So typically when that's happening, I like to be off the gas. And like I said, if my mental trades are not working out, then I'm not going to be okay with taking anything on my P8s. I think there was one that I was moderately okay with and risk was a little bit tighter, was this one up here. So we did have this deeper mitigation to these imbalances. We were downtrending for most of the day. Deeper mitigation to these imbalances. We did have fail to closes on the 10 second. Nice displacement through, consolidation. I was more than okay with this one. It just never hit entry. That was the only, I actually had set a limit order for this one, but no entry, and then just started bleeding back down. And like I said, typically around like 11:30, I'll get off the charts if I don't find anything. Now moving on to Friday, July 19th. Off the bat from open, it did look a little bit like seek and destroy. So we started taking these highs, taking lows. So with that comes rangy conditions, right? And range conditions isn't my greatest strength, but I have improved on it. Typically with range conditions, you do want to sell high, buy low, okay? But easier said than done, because a lot of the highs and lows tend to get induced as well, which is basically what happened to this trade. So this is actually a loss, and I told myself on Friday that even if I take a loss, I know I'm going to end the week green. So I was more than okay with taking this. If I pushed a little bit more, could I have had a green day? Of course, but you got to stick with your rules that you set before you start trading. Now, waited 30 minutes for market to play out. We did have this 1 minute fail to close on the bottom of the range. Okay, 10-second zone, nice displacement through, consolidation up here, came down. Now, some folks might say, okay, this is like catching a falling knife. To me, when it is calculated, when it is validated zones, and you've seen this work out constantly, it in my opinion is not catching a falling knife. So entry, I had set about 60% of that true zone, which is about like 12-point stop, and this was just a direct stop right there. Didn't really have any reaction out of it. Induced that low. This is where rangy conditions and chop comes into play. Induced that low, and then started pushing up. Okay, but after that loss, I was done for the week. Wasn't my greatest week, but I will show you what the performance was. And this is what I was talking about in the beginning of the video, is really focusing on the law of large numbers, focusing on the probabilities. Don't let 1, 2, 3 losses dictate how you're trading or your strategy, okay? Now, this short was really nice. Part of me wishes I waited for that one, but nothing was really wrong with this. If I have validation to take the trade, then I have that validation, okay? Could I have said, we closed below this 1 minute zone, this 1 minute low right here, and created a zone, hit 50% and came back down? Yes, but like I said prior to my video, there's always going to be a confluence or two that's going to work against your trade. If you always focus on what could go wrong, you will never execute, okay? Sometimes you do have to execute, as long as you have the reasoning behind that execution and probabilities are in your favor. That is what matters in the long run. Now, going up to this short, this is a really nice short where we have this 10-second fail to close, 1 minute fail to close, 1 minute CSS down here. Came, tapped up 60% of it. We also had that nice displacement. Not too much consolidation, but decent displacement. Tapped to 60% and went straight to TP after that. So could I have taken that and ended my Friday green? Of course, but I already established the rules ahead of time, okay? And just to talk about really focusing on the law of large numbers, I don't like showing P&L. For me, showing P&L and not showing your trade examples is useless, in my opinion. In the end, if you're trying to learn, other people's P&Ls shouldn't matter. It should come down to your executions, your psychology, and just improving those. Because if you really focus on the P&L, and this is like beating a dead horse because everyone says that, if you focus on the P&L and not the process, it's not going to work. If you focus on the process first, that's where the P&L is going to come in, okay? So whether you have to work on your psychology, whether you have to work on your strategy, I would say more so everything is going to fall under psychology and being disciplined. You have to have a set amount of rules. I know that every day I will have 0 to 2 trades. I know every day I will be done by 11:30, 11:45 Eastern max. Because I have those rules implemented, it's very hard for me to blow up an account, at least in a single day or 2 days, or even more so, okay? But like I said, even though this wasn't my greatest week I've had, it was still above 1900 for the week, okay? Not near goal, but it's still, I would say, pretty decent, considering the fact that I'm technically only executing most days from 10 a.m. Eastern to 11:30, and even by then I'm done, okay? But just to I want to use this to put that into perspective. of really focusing on the law of large numbers. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And just to kind of talk about something really important, okay, because I had a bunch of people ask me, okay, what zones am I using? For me, there is 3 zones, okay? So aside from this being counter trend or anything, I want to really showcase this. So here, let me take off the first and foremost those. Okay, so you have 3 zones in my opinion. First, you have your move origin. So in this case, the last swing low to the swing high. Okay, so valid low, valid high. That is your move origin. That is the last move that put in that swing high before the move back down. Okay. Next, we have intermedium. Okay, intermedium being, so sometimes move origin sometimes move origin could be all 3 of these things, but this is a good example to really break down how I see the zones. So you have a move origin, intermedium being 1 step above move origin, so more of that middle zone in between. And the reason why I like intermedium the most is I like to pick a zone that is closely associated with the 1 minute CSS. So for example, you have this swing high that was put in, right? Close below this low. So that is going to be your CSS. Now, intermedium is going to be more so closely associated as a true zone within that CSS. Even though move origin is that CSS, sometimes, like I said prior, it doesn't even come up to move origin. Okay, so as long as the risk makes sense, if it's like 10, 11, 12 points on intermedium, I am more than okay with taking that intermedium zone. As you can see here, actually that one ended up working, hit 60% of intermedium, went to intermedium low. Okay, so if I was engaging in this trade, I would be taking intermedium. Okay, that would have been entry, intermedium zone low, that would have been your TP. If I was going for move origin, okay, and intermedium already hit 50% and went to zone low, I will not engage in the trade anymore because chances are that move origin high will get ran. And third and foremost is true zone. So true zone being the high that broke the low. Okay, so if you look on the 1 minute, this is your high, broke and closed below this low. This is your true zone. Okay, typically I don't like to look too left in here or look at higher time frame zones, but when my chart looks like this is the true zone that I see. So like I said earlier, if intermedium hit 50% and went to zone low, I will not engage. More so, if true zone hit 50% and went to true zone low, I will not engage into that intermedium as well. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. If that does not make sense, either ask away on our Discord or comment down below as well. And just to show you another example right here. Okay, so ignore the counter trend, but let's say you're engaging in this one. Right here we have move origin, which is also the intermedium. Okay, so you have your CSS 1 minute CSS right there. Move origin, this is the last valid high that put in this last valid low. Okay, so swing high to swing low, that's your move origin. However, this is also intermedium because this is the zone that is closely associated with that CSS. Okay, true zone, which will be the last high that it closed above. So this high got broken by this low. This is going to be your true zone. Okay, that is the last valid high that this closed above. And like I said, so if this would have worked out to you, even though it's counter trend, but if true zone was mitigated, meaning it hit 50% and moved to true zone high, I will not engage in this. Also, if intermedium hit 50% mitigated, went to zone high, I will not engage as well. Okay, I know it's a lot, but I would say focusing on really being able to read those zones, because I've noticed when most people take losses, they're using move origin as the whole zone. Okay, even though sometimes the intermedium or the true zone's already mitigated, move origin's not going to hold as much value anymore. So really focusing on and of course there's a lot of videos out there, really focus on establishing those correct validated zones. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Of course, like I said, if you have any questions, join our Discord. It's completely free, or just comment down below. I do appreciate everyone joining. If you do want to support the channel, I do have Apex's 80% off affiliate link down below. Just code is ARK. So, but other than that, I will catch you guys next week, and trade safe, y'all. Bye.